We are joined by Graham Bannerman. He's a scholar at the Middle East Institute here in Washington, D.C. We want to thank you for coming in and joining us. What do you think when you watch a piece like that? I mean, there's so much suffering, and it's on both sides, and it doesn't seem like there's any end to any of this.
No, it's very depressing. And you look at the situation, you start with the three Jewish boys who were killed, and then you have this horrendous murder of the Palestinian, and you say, where can this go? And no one can be very happy with the situation.
And then add to that, as long as we're talking about teens, there's an American teen who was beaten by Israeli security forces. That was broadcast, which only inflames things more. It seemed as though a year ago, John Kerry, the Secretary of State, had all these high hopes, as did the Obama administration. They put this 9-month deadline. We're going to come up with a peace deal. That collapsed. How do we get from there, where there was optimism, to where we are today?
Well, I think the Kerry effort was of limited optimism. They thought they needed to make an effort in order to avoid the situation that we're facing today, because I think those of people who have spent time working on the peace process realize if you're not making progress, things slip backward into the terrible situation you are today. Not only the suffering of the Palestinians and the Israelis in the Jerusalem area, but the escalation of violence in Gaza, which is very concerning.
I've read some places where they say peace process is a misnomer. There wasn't much peace and there wasn't much process. Do you agree?
Well, I agree. I think, well, there's an effort you have to try to move peace forward. It's hard, it's difficult. For people who are old as I am, I started working on the peace between Arabs and Israelis with the Second Sinai II disengagement agreement in 1975. And I then worked through the Camp David process. It's very important that you go forward. That said, it's never easy, and it takes the people in the region to become committed to the process. They're not committed at this time.
You go back in time to 75. We can go back even further than that. I mean, yeah, Henry Kissinger, the 60s, late 60s. This has been going on and on and on. And it seems like it never seems to gain any traction. It kind of stuck in neutral. What needs to happen? What can happen to ratchet down the tensions and to actually get real negotiations?
Well, there has to be a realization, both within the Israeli society and the Palestinians, that serious compromises are necessary. At this point, there is no pressure upon the Israelis to move forward in the peace process because the status quo, until the last few weeks, was better than what they were being asked to concede.
Where do you see this going now? Because it seems like things heighten on a daily basis.
You just don't know. This is the problem with the Middle East peace process in the Arab-Israeli situation. Clearly, the Gaza Strip is very worrisome because the Israeli government appears to have determined to take further actions to go after Hamas in Gaza. And Hamas appears determined to respond like today, with the perhaps 100 rockets today coming out of Gaza, and the Israelis with dozens of bombing raids.
Yeah, one final question. We don't have a lot of time, but how disheartening is it for somebody who was there in the early stages, who kind of thought, you know, at some point we'll get there, to look at the landscape today?
Oh, I thought the peace process after 1979 peace treaty, I thought that they were going to make it in the early 80s. I think you have to, if you work on the Middle East, you have to see the glass as 5% full and not 95% empty.
Graham, thanks so much. Interesting perspective.